Okay, so we all have that song or movie or video game that everyone loves, is critically acclaimed, but you personally don't see the appeal of. Yeah, please don't kill me. Okay, so JRPGs seem to be going pretty damn strong these days, with the likes of Final Fantasy, Pokemon, and Persona all selling really well, and with quite a few of the genres scoring really well with critics. And today we're going to talk about a relative newcomer to the scene, Ni no Kuni. It was back in 2013 when I first heard about this franchise, and that same year, I played Wrath of the White Witch, which, whilst not the absolute greatest JRPG to hit store shelves, did stand out as one of the better ones at the time. Fun Pokemon-esque team building, stunning world to explore, touching story, and an absolutely undeniable charm, which thanks to Level 5's partnership with the legendary studio Ghibli, well, that charm was inevitable. And thanks to critical praise and strong sale numbers, Ni no Kuni is now officially a franchise. With the recent release of Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, Wrath of the White Witch was one of the best JRPGs of its time. Is Revenant Kingdom the new hot JRPG that others will strive to be like? No. Chapter 1. Jake Lloyd 2.0. So Revenant Kingdom takes place about 200 years after the events of White Witch, and immediately I can let any newcomers to the franchise know Revenant Kingdom requires zero knowledge of the first game. Oliver and everyone else are barely even mentioned, so if perhaps turn-based RPGs are your thing and you prefer action-oriented ones, feel free to jump right into Revenant Kingdom. So our main character this time around is a young king by the name of Evan. Yeah, king. Evan's a boy. He's got long blonde hair, eyeliner, and is voiced by a woman, but he's a boy. Seriously, when I first saw Evan's design, I thought Oliver from the first game had a sex change or something. So after a coup where his father is murdered and Ding Dong Dell is taken over by a rat, Evan sets out to build a new kingdom, all while setting out into the world with the goal of bringing all the nations together to bring about world peace, all while this evil snake dude is doing evil stuff behind the scenes. Okay, so positives first. Despite Studio Ghibli being much less involved this time around, the charm of the first game is still here in abundance. This is a lush, colourful world filled with character designs and settings that are unmistakably courtesy of Studio Ghibli. Like there's a town full of dogs where everything is decided through the roll of a die, and then there's the city in the middle of the ocean where the very act of love is outlawed. And the main cast are indeed quite likeable, with standouts including Roland, the President of the United States of America. I'm not fucking with you, that's really who he is. I mean, it's never explicitly said he's from the US, but trust me, that's what's implied. Anyway, he's not the deepest, most in-depth character in the world, but he's cool. I like him. There's also a character called Lofty, and well, it was one Yoshiyuki Momose who designed him, and what I would give to hear the thought process he had behind his design. Okay, Momose, we need a design for Evan's Kingmaker companion. Go! Alright, here's what we do. We take Lisa Simpson, make a male, yeah, give him a Cockney accent, and turn him into a starfish. Momose-san, you've gone and done it again. Oh! Ta-da! Seriously, what the hell was he thinking? But speaking of Lofty and his Cockney slang, one thing I do appreciate is the wealth of British accents on show here. Yeah, with games like Xenoblade and The Last Story, this seems to be a bit of a recurring theme in modern JRPGs. And me hailing from Bradford in West Yorkshire is neat to see. Odd, but neat. I mean, it is a little funny seeing such strong British accents coming from the mouths of Japanese character designs. I mean, can you imagine other Japanese media doing this? Hey up, Vegeta. What does Scouter say about that twat's power level? Fucking hell, man, it's over 9,000? Fuck right off, mate. 9,000? That bloody thing's knackered, you bellend. Yeah, in hindsight, maybe we should leave most dubbing to the Americans. So yeah, that aside, there's also, okay, I'm struggling to come up with many of the positives here. There's a lot of issues with the story. Let's start with Evan himself. He's kind of annoying. Like, remember how everyone hated Jake Lloyd in The Phantom Menace with how cringy his dialogue and performance was?
Yippee!
Yeah, Evan is like that, but worse.
Building our new kingdom won't be easy. But we will build it. A beautiful, bountiful kingdom where everyone can live happily ever after.
There's a Japanese audio track. I recommend you take it. I mean, he is the worst. What with his yippies and gollies, and how he wants to build a kingdom where everyone can live happily ever after. It is beyond hammy. And it's made worse by how he's supposed to be a king that inspires everyone around him, cause he literally wins over crowds with his speeches. I do not buy that for a millisecond. Also, the story as a whole here just pales in comparison to the more personal and absorbing tale of White Witch. Here, the majority of the plot revolves around Evan and his group visiting the various locales of the world and convincing the inhabitants to sign a treaty. It's not that engrossing and it mostly feels like padding. And whilst the story does pick up around chapter 7, well, that's quite late on for me to begin caring. I mean, there's just so much more that could have been done. Like, remember President Roland here? Well, he gets transported to this world against his will, and you'd think he'd be trying to find out about how to get back, but he barely ever mentions it. You have a son back home, mate. He could be dead. Why don't you seem to give a shit? You see, unlike the first game, we spend next to no time on Earth. It would have been cool to visit it every now and then, especially considering what happens to it at the beginning of the game, and the personal impact it should have had on Roland. In fact, Ni no Kuni 2 should be Roland's story, not Evan's. Roland has the more personal of stakes here, and he's 100% more likeable and, well, rootable. So why are we stuck with this little shit?
We won! Hooray!
Ugh. Another issue with the story is that characters like Batu and Tani especially are completely forgotten about. They just seem to be along for the ride with zero reason to travel with you. Like, introduce some personal stakes. Like, maybe the evil snake dude killed Batu's wife, or maybe a romance could have blossomed between two of the main party. Just give these characters something to do. Give me a reason to care about them and give them a reason to be here. I mean, look, there is some strength to the plot here because of, again, the charm of the world and characters. Because there are a handful of fun moments, like a bit in Hydropolis where they stage a marriage proposal to get the attention of the guards, where Tani here teases Evan and Lofty rocks a fake beard and glasses to play the role of director. Yes, I like that. It's goofy, but it's having fun, and the game, in my opinion, needed more moments like this. Also, more audible dialogue would have helped the story immensely. Yeah, so much of the game isn't even given voiceovers. Though in the case of Evan, that's a good thing, but still. Yeah, there is a lot of text to read in this game, and look, I wouldn't mind this if it was just side missions that weren't voice acted, but many of the main story bits are just text to read, and it severely robs the game of any gravitas it could have had. Now I know I'm gonna get a lot of people disagreeing with me here. Hey, lack of voice acting isn't a negative. Zelda usually doesn't have it. Or hell, what about Ace Attorney? It's one of your all-time favourite franchises and there's next to no voice acting in those games. But I will respectfully disagree there. Zelda, true, doesn't have much voice acting, but the story isn't a major focus there. I mean, it has a plot, but 90% of the game is still pure gameplay. As for Ace Attorney, they're handheld games, and the text is actually elevated there through fun character animations and sound effects, so the lack of voice acting there is more than alleviated. In Ni no Kuni 2, a AAA, PS4, 2018 release, there are just endless reams of text to read, none of which is honestly that interesting, especially during side quests, but we'll get to that. Hell, when characters are speaking, they don't even put profile pics up, so it sometimes takes a few seconds to work out who is even talking. Look, just slap a pic here, that's all you needed. Oh, and there are no anime cutscenes this time around. Yeah, Ni no Kuni 2 is a hotly anticipated sequel to a Studio Ghibli collaboration, and there's no anime cutscenes? Yeah, sorry guys, the story and characters are delightful and endearing, and that will be enough for some, but for me, it's lacking substance. Ni no Kuni 2 definitely has its moments, but if you want a truly absorbing and memorable plot to go along with your RPG, there are far better options out there. Chapter 2: King Evan, Masher of the Triangle Button. So the meat of the game is the combat system, and this time, Ni no Kuni has gone for all-out real-time action. You and 2 other party members take the field as you lay waste to enemies with light and heavy attacks, all while making use of rolling dodges and various magical abilities. Now, it's definitely not the most original combat system in the world, but it's effective. For the most part. I mean, attacks feel delightfully flashy, there's never any issue with the camera, and your teammate AI is really quite good, to the point where they sometimes needed healing less than I did. That was great to see. But the combat system, I unfortunately found a bit basic. For starters, it's a hell of a button masher. I found that only a handful of enemies like these stone giant things here were all that offensive. It was only with these guys I had to be careful and think about when the right time to attack was. Most other monsters just sort of stand there as you mash away at their feet. Occasionally they'll then move, so you move 2 to where they land, and then you just mash away with heavy attacks again. And when you have enough MP, you use a magic attack for extra damage, then you mash away with triangle again as your MP refills. It's a bit repetitive. I mean, if Ni no Kuni is going to go for a more real-time action approach to combat, why not incorporate more in-depth fighting mechanics? Like Dark Souls style ripostes, Devil May Cry style launch attacks, Arkham Asylum style counters, or maybe cool combos to learn, like the kind you'd find in the old PS2 Lord of the Rings games. Ni no Kuni 2, like those games, has a light and heavy attack, but I never felt much need to use the lighter variant. In the Lord of the Rings games, heavy attacks were better suited to shielded enemies, but here, all enemies have no preference to light or heavy strikes. So why are there 2 different attack strengths? Naturally, I'm always going to use the stronger one. I mean, light attacks are a bit quicker, but I never felt much need to have a faster attack over a stronger one. Now, to spruce things up somewhat, there are a few other aspects to fighting. First of which are ranged attacks. Every party member rocks either a wand, bow, or gun. Yeah, gun. It's weird how so many JRPGs have them, isn't it? I still can't get over how strange it is to see them in a fantasy setting, but their inclusion is more notable here. I mean, Roland straight up ices some motherfuckers. Now shoot the kid! Anyway, despite the inclusion of these ranged weapons, I didn't use them all that much. The problem is that they use up MP, the same resource you use for magic attacks, and because magic attacks are more powerful, well, why ever use a ranged attack then? Even airborne enemies you can easily hit with a melee strike. I feel ranged weapons should have had their own kind of ammo. I just personally found them both too resource intensive and weak on damage output to use all that often. Now there is a slightly more useful battle mechanic in the form of rolling dodges, but because the game is pretty dang easy, they're not as useful as they should be. I often found it more important to chip away as much damage as I could and not bother dodging, and then if I did get hit, I'd just re-heal with a crap ton of healing items I had. And trust me, once you get far into the game, you'll be able to afford hundreds of these. The game actually does limit you with how many healing items you can use per battle, but as long as you have a varied inventory, you'll never run out. Speaking of the lack of difficulty, should I be knocking the game for that? Because it really is a breeze. The only times I died was when I got overzealous and tried to take on a monster far beyond my own level. And yeah, me personally, I found the lack of a challenge an issue. Me personally. If you don't mind that kind of thing, forget everything I said. In fact, the ease of the game does offer one advantage, and that's how there's next to no grinding required here. Now, I actually like a bit of grinding. I like how a lot of RPGs require you to go into rocky training montage mode to prep for a big fight. But I understand that this can get a bit monotonous for some, so yeah, if you're not a fan of grinding, maybe Ni no Kuni 2 is right for you. Now, outside of battle, there's many options for customization. You've got the usual equips for weapons, armor, and accessories. There's a tactic tweaker mode where you can cater the battle to your own personal needs. And then there's Higgledies, which are this game's equivalent to Ni no Kuni 1's familiars. These little guys follow you around, kinda like Pikmin, and they have all sorts of various attacks and abilities to help you out. So, in a way, they kind of act like a fourth team member. Not gonna lie though, despite gathering as many of these guys as I could and maxing out literally every single one of their levels, I didn't feel much in the way of impact they had in battle. Like Pokemon, they were kind of fun to find and collect, but I just didn't notice any extra damage output from using them. In fact, that's kind of a recurring theme with Ni no Kuni 2. A lot of what you do to prepare for battle really doesn't have much of a noticeable effect. Remember in my Shadow of War review when I said you collected far too many weapons so upgrading them felt really lackluster? Yeah, it's exactly the same problem here. You collect so many weapons, armor sets and accessories in this game, it is beyond overkill. You collect a new equipable item after practically every fight, so that feeling you get in most RPGs, where you're like, ooh, new weapon, yes, is instead replaced by, ugh, a new weapon? Do I really have to go into the equip screen again already? Can't be arsed. Yeah, you collect so much shit in this game, it actually got to the point where I couldn't even be bothered to equip what I found. That new sword could have been stronger, but I knew that if it was, it wouldn't have been noticeably stronger, so I was like, forget it. Yeah, you know when RPG is doing something wrong when you don't even want to equip what you find. But back to the combat, and to summarise, it's serviceable. Fun enough, but it can get a bit mundane. And the lacking combat system isn't helped by the sheer lack of enemy variety, which really is pretty atrocious considering the sheer amount of monster designs other JRPGs have. But hey, at least the combat system is better than the other battle mode this game has. Chapter 3. War. What is it good for? Well, it continues to be nothing. So, throughout your adventure, you'll occasionally stumble across a different battle mode. Skirmishes. These are top-down perspective fights where you control 4 army units. You rotate them around Evan, and it serves as a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing. Red units beat green ones beat blue ones, and blue ones beat red ones. Sound familiar? You also have access to special attacks, and the first army whose might depletes to 0 is the loser. And every time I had to do one of these fights, I groaned. I mean, they're not spectacularly bad or anything, they're just boring. You move around very slowly. Once you come across an enemy unit, you hold down square to attack, making sure the right unit is in front. You hold down circle to replenish units if you need to, and that's really about it. It doesn't feel good to play, it requires 0 thought or any semblance of strategy. Like, why couldn't these fights be something akin to a Fire Emblem style minigame perhaps? That could have been interesting. Instead, we get this monotonous mess. Again, they're not bad, but I always would rather be fighting monsters the usual way. That's all I have to say about this crap. Next. Chapter 4. Mobile gaming on your TV? So one massive praise I gotta give Ni no Kuni 2 is just how different it is to Ni no Kuni 1. Battle system is different, characters are different, there's new modes to play. You certainly can't knock the game for trying something new. And then there's something else Level 5 did, as there's now a big emphasis on kingdom building. Once you reach the Kingdom of Evermore, you can get to work on building new shops, research stations, and begin resourcing new materials for weapon upgrades and such. Now, it's a shame that everything is pre-laid out. I would have loved it if you had a blank green space to start with, and then you could build pathways and new shops where you wanted, a la theme park. But maybe that's an idea for Ni no Kuni 3. Now you get access to a different currency to use here called King's Guilders. You use these to upgrade your kingdom and carry out research. And these special coins, you don't get from battle or anything, they're instead generated over real time. And as soon as I heard about this, I panicked. Because this whole shtick of waiting and cashing in coins is something taken straight out of mobile gaming. Thankfully, my fears were put to rest. I mean, it would have been so easy for Level 5 to incorporate microtransactions here. Thank God they didn't. Instead, the way this works is that you let these King's Guilders generate as you go about your adventure. Then you can visit Evermore every now and then to cash in. Or you could do what I did and leave your PS4 on while you go do something else. This method proved rather fruitful.
Look, everybody! My purse exploded!
Now your kingdom would be nothing without its inhabitants, and this adds something quite unique to the side quests. Yes, side quests net you golden items, as is the norm in most RPGs, but by helping out folks in the rest of the world, you can convince them to come back to Evermore to live and work. And all of these guys have specific fields of expertise, where if you bring back a blacksmith for example, they can help build better weapons, or maybe you bring back a farmer who can help cultivate crops faster. This I quite liked. It's a unique reward for an RPG, and it's interesting to see your kingdom grow over time. It's just a shame though that the side quests you gotta do to bring back these people are about as unimaginative and dull as side quests can get. Chapter 5: Virtual Chores. Yeah, this alone is pretty much the reason why I'm perplexed by this game's glowing reviews. There's just so many fetch quests, oh my god, it is dire. Evan, I need you to do this thing, but I need you to go to this place to get the item I need to do the thing with. If you want 100% this game, repeat that same quest 100-fold. Literally, 100-fold. And these fetch quests aren't in the least bit challenging or motivating. Because of the game's abundance of fast travel points, you'll hit a few buttons to where the item is, you'll hit a few buttons to come back, you'll deliver the item, and you'll be like, yeah, what was the point of that? Then there's times in the game where you come across guys who confuse you for a delivery boy. Go to point A, push a button, go to point B, push a button, go point C, push a button. Sound like fun? Well, clearly most critics think so. Look, this isn't a short, irrelevant part of the game. There's over 100 side quests here, and almost all are like this. They are annoying, unexciting, and pestering. Oh, why do I have that in quotes? Well, that's because it is a quote, by none other than the developers themselves. I came across this mermaid lady who, once I completed her side quest and invited her to Evermore, she said, "I cannot promise that I will stop pestering you with annoying requests once I am there." What the fuck, level 5? You just admitted how shitty your side quests are. Look, it's not a case of, oh, Evan and Lofty find it annoying, but you as a player don't. No, you'll find these quests about as monotonous as they do, trust me. Oh, and then there's another NPC I found too, where once I talked to this guy about a side quest, he said, "I know it's not the most exciting work in the world." Then why, level 5, did you put it in the game? Does anyone else notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Oh, and then you got the usual board in the game where they list off additional side quests. And to give an idea of how exciting these are, they literally call them errands. Errands! Ni no Kuni 2, fucking errand simulator. I mean, where are the cool dungeons to explore? Where are the fun mini-games? Where are the puzzles? Oh, that last one is weird, because there actually is a puzzle in this game. One puzzle. It's part of a story mission early on in the campaign, and it actually was quite interesting. It was visually intriguing, it got me thinking, and once I completed it, I got that infamous aha moment. But this is literally the only time this sort of thing shows up in the game. You've got one puzzle to 100 bloody fetch quests. And look, fetch quests can be made somewhat fun, and there's two ways you can do that. Firstly, you make the world itself fun to explore, and Ni no Kuni 2 is relatively good at that. It's a very pretty game with lush colours that pop, and once you get the airship, it's kind of fun to swoop around the world and explore. But because of the ease of fast travel, you honestly won't feel much need to do any kind of long distance hauling. Oh, and it's also let down by how static the world feels. Take Goldpaw for example. It's a really pretty city, but notice how none of the NPCs are doing anything. Where's the kids playing in the street? Where's the casino goers betting all on red? Where's the chef cooking up a treat? There's just nothing happening. No one is going anywhere or doing anything, and it makes the world feel kind of dead. Compare this to The Witcher 3, for example. Look how alive and bustling the towns are here with all the various street performers, people working, merchants selling their wares. Certainly not getting that here. The only thing that makes the place feel somewhat alive is the music, but you turn that off and, well, welcome to purgatory. The areas outside the cities don't fare too well either. Throughout the world there are various caves and shrines to explore. But apart from a palette swap, they're all designed the same. Take the caves as an example. You go through a mundane looking tunnel you've seen 1,000 times already, then you get a room full of enemies. You go through another tunnel, room full of enemies. Another tunnel, another room full of enemies. And again, they all look exactly the bloody same. And thanks to the lack of a sprint button, well, get used to traversing these damn things. Now the other way to make fetch quests interesting is to attach an interesting story along with it, but that's never the case here. I just got so bored of reading the same old story of I need this item to do this thing so many times, I just began tapping away at X to skip through the mundane dialogue I'd heard a million times already. Guys, I'm done with this game. Let's conclude. Ni no Kuni 2, sorry to say, I found massively disappointing. I'm gonna get crucified for saying that, but screw it. It has its charm, the combat is somewhat fun, the story does pick up toward the end, and the music is quite nice. A bit overbearing at times, but there's some enjoyable tracks, like the pleasant flute melody that plays in Capstone Upon Hull, that one I really loved. But the game is unfortunately too much of a button masher, it's far too easy for my liking, so little of the game is voice acted and what little that is often pretty hammy, level design is too copy and paste, skirmishes are no fun to play, battle preparation can feel pretty pointless, and the side quests are so boring they feel like chores. In fact, no, they are chores. I'm gonna be assassinated. Ni no Kuni 2 gets a 6. Look, if you think I'm wrong about this game, awesome, good for you. You see greatness where I don't. I just can't deny that as soon as this game was over, I was like, yes, now I can get on with something else. Now a 6 on my scale is still above average. I can't call Ni no Kuni 2 a bad game. I mean, look how charming it looks. It's kinda hard to hate on it too much. But at the end of the day, nothing about my time with it truly impressed me. Honestly, a lot of the game's aspects came across as quite low budget. In fact, I'm convinced Level 5 had far less funds to play with here. What with no anime cutscenes, a lack of voice acting, motionless worlds, copy and paste objectives, a lot of level design looking the same. Yeah, it's gotta be low budget. And maybe I'd be forgiving of that if the game wasn't priced that way. Look, if you want a safe little RPG out of Japan complete with an innocent story, easy combat system, and fetch quests galore, pick up Ni no Kuni 2 today. For the rest of you, pick up Persona 5. I'll see you guys next time.